so blessed by Brett from Street Fight, another great worker-centered podcast, which Alex listens to in the shower, and I always hear him giggling. So that's an official secondhand endorsement. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We are experiencing a somber moment. We, of course, like to goof and make jokes, but we in this room and those of us here digitally join the many mourners of lives lost to racist violence at the physical hands of an individual, but enforced and exacerbated by whole systems of people which were designed to protect and uplift whiteness, especially as it intersects with patriarchy. This isn't a statement about us, the people involved with this podcast. It's not about our feelings or our commitments. We aren't going to discuss it right now, although there is undoubtedly much to be said. In fact, we don't want to take up much space other than to center the grief of the Asian American, and Pacific Islander communities who have experienced ongoing violence by white perpetrators for a long time and at an elevated rate in this last year because of the perpetuation of the racist myth that China specifically, like as an entity, is somehow responsible for COVID. As of the date of recording, which is Saturday, March 20th, it has only been a few days since 8 people, 6 of them Asian women, were murdered in cold blood across 3 locations in Georgia. The guy who did it, like the guy who targeted these places and went there with a gun, aimed it at people and pulled the trigger, Mr. Bad Day, I'll call him. He'll get humanized and focused on, and people have different ways of coping and or trying to understand why shit like this happens. But right now, I'm gonna just say the names of the victims, and no matter what happens going forward, we want to hold these people and their families and friends in our hearts, these people who had lives and likes and interests and aspirations and like favorite foods and bands and stuff. And regardless of anything they did or didn't bring into the world, they did not deserve to go out like that, and we hope that they will be able to rest in both peace and power. The guides for pronunciations of the Korean and Chinese names come from Ginny Yang, as well as Janice Wu and Francis Wang from the AAJA, the Asian American Journalists Association, with input from the public. Here we go. Remembering Soon Chung Park, Hyun Jung Grant, also known by some by her family name Kim, Sun Cha Kim, Yang E Yit, Delana Ashley Yun, Paul Andre Michels, who I believe was a maintenance worker at one of the spas, Xiao Jie Tan, and Dao Yo Feng. I also want to acknowledge Elsius Hernandez Ortiz, a passerby who was reportedly going to a neighboring business to send money to family members in his home country, who survived the event itself but was shot multiple times in vital areas and is fighting for his life. It's you don't expect to go to work and be murdered, you know? In most cases, I think people shouldn't have to be afraid of leaving the house to go to work or school or the park or corner store, or for fuck's sake, go to sleep in their own beds with the fear of some racist bursting in. And obviously increasing police presence is absolutely not a solution for race-based violence and or gender-based violence. Anyway, we can say more about that another time. It's not exactly local news, but as it's still fresh and many people are struggling to begin processing, it is important for us to at least say their names. No, we're recording this episode a bit out of order because Alex and I have to fly south in a few days to deal with some family stuff on my end. So by the time it airs, the news very well may look different. But as of right now, the big deal that we're going to really sound off on, shifting into more of a roundtable format, are some of the proposed state laws that have popped up in the Senate recently, some of which are good, most of which are
facetious.
Especially heinous, is what I was going to say.
Heinous. That's a good word. I do want to say, in regard to the shooting, that how difficult it is to like realize and to see firsthand that the condition of people in this country, non-white people, non-cis people, cannot get better unless white cis males figure their shit out, because and as a white cis male, I do think that it's partially my responsibility to admit that like there is a real problem going on with white fragile masculinity and just whiteness in general. And all of these things, whether it's shooting black people in a church or shooting Asians where they work, it's perpetuated, it's done by white males who are angry. And it's frustrating being a part of that group, but knowing that like I can't do anything about it. I can like lead by example. I can be the best that I am. I can, send people correct news, but they don't want to listen to me, and that's a frustrating thing to come to terms with.
It is. It is that. It is difficult. Do you guys want to talk about these? I think we can probably flesh out some of those thoughts as we talk about some of these bills, because they kind of address some of these things that we're talking about. And Brett's not local to Rhode Island with us, but he has a brain that I really enjoy. So I would love to hear from you if you have anything to say about any of these bills. There are similar bills going on in a lot of other states, so, chime in.
Yeah, I'm ready to hear it.
All right, so I sort of organized these based on broad topic. The first two are related to climate issues, which I've sort of been taking the lead and talking about on this podcast as they come up. Last week there was a major submarine fire in South Providence on a decommissioned ex-Russian submarine, of all weird things. So S633 is a bill that seeks to transfer power to approve applications for interconnections in renewable energies to the government rather than to businesses, which I think in a basic level could be really cool.
Say that again?
So basically the bill is saying that contracts for green energy need to be run through the government rather than through businesses, which is great, I think, because what we all kind of are looking for is some kind of nationalized grid. That way the price of energy can be better regulated. And what happened to people in Texas, for example, can't happen if it's all nationalized.
You said nationalized grid. Shout out to DSA doing a nationalized grid entire movement here in Providence.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, I cut you off, Brett.
No, it was fine. Yeah, I think it's going to take large scale coordination to get this done. And what COVID has shown us, what the Texas power situation has shown us, that the winner take all, everyone's on their own, John Galt type society crumbles very quickly when there's stress. And I think that as the weather gets worse and messes with our traditional systems, those things are crumbling. We aren't doing the right thing. And there needs to be more investment in large scale projects to take care of this. And Germany is doing a great job of it. There's other places in the world that are accomplishing things. But America just is forever hamstrung by this individualism, and I alone decide, and I'm in charge of everything, and I don't want to play nice with anybody, and that's my right. That's how I feel a lot of times.
Yeah, related to that, when these climate related bills and energy related bills came out, National Grid US sold their contracts in Rhode Island, so they dipped out, expecting that these bills will probably pass and that it would change the nature of the energy game in the state. And so instead of like dealing with it and trying to figure out how to work with the state government to make energy access more equitable, National Grid just dipped. They were like, see you later. It's like the definition of predatory capitalism.
I think a big reason that they were so intimidated is because of the work by Renew RI and the Rescue RI Act and all of their bills that they're trying to pass. It's like a huge fucking movement. It's like over 20 different organizations all coming together. You have like teachers unions, labor unions, activist groups, people that live in these affected communities by terrible climate situations, like living next to dumps. They're trying to build another dump on Allen's Ave. All of this crazy shit. There's like a lot of people, like a big grassroots movement that's like starting to walk through the doors, figuratively, I guess, because we have COVID, but like call in and testify. And it's intimidating these companies. And it fucking should, because the people have power and they deserve to be heard.
Yeah, the amount of testimony that Renew RI and these other leftist groups in Rhode Island has been pretty impressive. Just regular working class people coming in to say, look, we're not going to vote for you unless you approve these bills. The climate one has been, the climate bills have been particularly popular. The other climate bill, S639, is a resolution to direct money from the military towards combating the climate crisis, which is great on the surface, right? Like.
Did you see Combat? Yeah, man. We combated the climate crisis.
The war on climate.
Make it a war, dude. It's the
Yeah,
easiest way to get funding.
But
it's like putting sandbags down on the shore or something. Like, I don't know exactly what combating climate looks like in the Rhode Island military, but like on the surface it seems cool that diverting money from the military to combat climate, whether that means investing in green energy or something like that. But there's other campaigns that are in the state right now, such as the effort to dismantle Kennedy Plaza, which is an area where a lot of people without homes and people of color commute downtown through work. And the city and the state wanted to dismantle the plaza, supposedly because they want to reconfigure the transportation industry. But realistically, it's so that they can get people of color and people without homes out of the downtown area. And so this is a case in which I feel like having a bill that vaguely put diverting money from the military toward combating climate crisis, that money could be invested into this dismantling of Kennedy Plaza. And so you have to sort of police carefully where that money that they're diverting from the military is going. Like, but you could also say, hey man, they're taking money out of the military. That's good. I agree with you, but I also want to know where it's going, you know? Those are the climate bills, anyway, that are worth following.
Oh, Brett, I got a question for you. This happened in Providence. During some testimonies, one of the senators that we have in Rhode Island just started blocking everybody who liked the testimonies on Twitter. Just like, I don't know what it was just wild. He must have gotten really sad and really angry. He actually called someone that was testifying mindless in the middle of their testimony. But have you ever heard of like a politician just straight up just like blocking like 20 people at a time on Twitter just for having an opinion different than theirs?
No, that's new. That's new to me. I feel like they mostly just breeze past it. That that is pretty impressive. But also, they were doing the testimony on Twitter.
Oh no, I'm sorry. So
People were just replying to it.
Yeah. So yeah. So what happened was that they were doing this in like a Zoom testimony kind of format. But Renew RI, who's kind of like the trunk of the tree of this coalition, was putting all of the updates with little snippets of testimony on their Twitter feed. So what he did is he went through like the entire Twitter feed and blocked everyone associated with anything.
So fucked up.
They're all they're babies. I mean, they all end up throwing a fit because they have to hear someone else's opinion. I mean, it's as simple as don't be a part of it. I don't think it's a requirement to be on there at all. So don't do it if you can't handle it. That's how I feel about Twitter.
Yeah.
Like, maybe there should be some, but you know, I guess like state reps, I think probably should have the block feature taken away forever. You know, I don't know if they should have the right to silence anybody if they're going to be accountable to all of us.
That's the thing, though. I think that like the accountability. I just saw another thread on Twitter, which was a friend of the podcast called out one of the Rhode Island senators, on this bill that we're going to talk about sports. And the senator just replied that his daughter plays sports and he can't imagine his daughter playing, quote unquote, with a boy. And like the kid that was the dude that was messaging him is like, nobody, like, we don't support this bill, and we are a part of we're a part of your constituency. And the guy just said no. So it's like clearly one of those things where these politicians don't really vote in the interest of the community, but in their own self-interest.
That was Lombardi, just for anyone listening.
Yeah.
And also, if you were blocked by Senator Archambault, Archambrant, I have his name in front of me. I'm just dyslexic. Archambault. He's the District 22 representative or senator for Smithfield, North Providence, and Johnston. And ACLU-RI has said that if he has blocked you or if you feel like you've been treated unfairly, to reach out to them, and they will get you unblocked. Because just like Brett said, you shouldn't be blocked by your reps.
Yeah.
The reps represent you. And as Alex said, if they're going to just totally disregard your opinion because they have their own way of thinking about something, then they shouldn't be there in the first place.
I tweeted his ass straight up. I was like, from PLR podcast, I was like, how come you haven't blocked me yet?
Yeah, I have to listen to all kinds of shit that I disagree with constantly, and you have to manage it.
Yeah.
And if I was in charge, I would expect that was part of the job. It's similar to comedians, the way that they complain that people don't want to hear the shit that they say, and it's like, well, you're doing it for an audience. This isn't like just because you should have all the power. You didn't earn you didn't earn the right to have power without being criticized.
That's a good point.
Damn straight.
Totally. The next three concern sex and gender stuff. So I get to talk about them. Senate Bill 638 is the big, nasty, trans exclusionary bill that echoes debates that have been going on all over the place for a minute. Basically, they're using the word fairness to tell anyone who is not assigned female at birth that they cannot participate in quote-unquote girls' sports because of the supposed science backing up the absurd and false notion that penis equals boy equals power and muscle, etc., thus giving them an athletic advantage over quote biological girls. My God, there's so much wrong with this. Like, first of all, this argument, like most asinine arguments that paint trans women and girls to be predatory monsters, is totally stupid, and nobody is like sitting around plotting the takeover of girls' sports. Like, this isn't a movie,
Yeah, it's not Ladybugs.
It's not Joanna Man. Like, that's why these movies are. Well, that's one of the reasons these movies are stupid. But yeah, nobody's.
And this kind of stuff, this kills people. Like, this leaves people, when we don't let people be who they want and just do what they want, we are ruining lives. We are creating more problems for ourselves. It's just, we're creating misery for the sake of tradition. And I don't know how long it's going to take for us to figure that out. I know that my kids have a very different understanding of gender, and the kids that I'm around, but there's still so many awful traditional ass pieces of shit raising their kids and forcing them to be how they want them to be.
Totally. And it's not even letting people be who they want. It's letting them be who they are, and not just letting them, but like supporting them in being who they are. I want to talk about the term biological because it gets thrown around a lot when referring to gender, people's biological gender. Biological girl is not a thing. Biological literally means related to the concept of living things. That's the bio part. So anyone alive is biological, and therefore biologically all genders are valid. Third, what What do they think the word fair means? I would like to know. It's like they're using this word, and it's a Princess Bride moment. I do not think that word means what you think it means. I used to teach preschool, and the kids would throw that at me constantly. They'd be like, "That's not fair." But what they really meant was I wasn't giving them what they wanted, which was preferential treatment. And I see absolutely no difference between that attitude and this one. Like, are 3-year-olds writing these bills? I think maybe. And
they're tantrumy people that are, caught up in their feelings about it more than anything. It's just they can't. You just want to like relax, just let go and let people be, like you said, who they are. This insistence that the world be the way you want it just leaves you in a constant tirade.
Yeah.
And they're freaking kids, man. Like, these athletes are literal children, and it is fundamentally weird that adults are so obsessed with their junk and are like politicizing and policing their bodies and their livelihoods. Like, it's mind-boggling. And also, I want to know what these people think hormones are and what they do and how it works, because the arguments that they're making makes it pretty clear to me that they have no idea how it works. So I'm going to recommend that they shut all the way up and let kids be kids and support the kids no matter who they are. Sports is one of those things that like teaches you a lot of different important like life skills, like teamwork and like whatever.
It also makes you feel accepted, like part of the community.
Well, that's the team building aspect of it. And there's like humility, I guess, involved for when you don't win. And I don't know, a lot of other things. I mean, as a teacher, I think about how to teach things to people all the time. So yeah, activities like sports are really, really important. I'm not going to be one of those people that's like talking shit about sports ball. Like, just because I'm really bad at sports does not mean sports are stupid.
What's the other state that just passed a similar law? I know that Rhode Island isn't alone in like these state initiatives to like get these things passed. And what's fucked up probably most about the Rhode Island case is that these are Democrats trying to pass these laws for the most part. So like Rhode Island Democrats are like Brett, correct me if I'm wrong, but in Ohio there's a lot more Republicans in public office than there are here. And so at least there you get a clearer sense of like who's red and who's blue. But in Rhode Island, like everybody is blue, but really they're red, and it's weird. It's hard to deal with.
Yeah, that is a mind fuck. I mean, we have traditionally Republican governor. All the representatives outside of the cities are red. We have had to put up with a lot of like heartbeat bills and right to work bills but we haven't had this one come up yet. But I don't even know how to yeah, I'm sure. But the Democrats doing it, I don't know how. I think that would shake up so much. It's just such a different culture, because you can get away in Ohio. The nice thing is you can just say like, I'm a Democrat, and it's like, I did enough. I'm better than the rest of the state that sucks. Even though functionally we have a lot of the same results of Republican governance, in regards to like segregation and discrimination and things like that. So it's all whatever people want to say they are, when it comes down to.
I think that in some other places, a Democrat means something to somebody, but I
Kamala
think
Harris and Joe Biden.
I think there's a vehicle near our house, and we see it all the time. They must work or live over here, and they have a Biden-Harris sticker and a Thin Blue Line sticker on the same car.
Yeah.
It's like, they're not even trying really anymore. And that's the big issue, is that there's been this sort of like, Democrats will save us kind of mentality. And it's like, that's what a lot of transphobia is. It's like turfiness. It's people using the word fairness because they think that being fair to people who were not, assigned women at birth, need to stay separate.
Yeah, it means excluding.
It is. That's exactly what it is. So that's why it's dumb. Okay, these next two are related to abortion, which again is a medical issue and not a criminal one. So it's beyond harmful to continually frame it as such. Again, other people's bodies, you are not entitled to any aspect of them. Don't comment on them. Definitely don't touch them without permission. Don't make up rules for them. Just don't. Don't do it. Senate Bill 645, allowing unannounced inspections of facilities that provide abortions. You might think, what's weird about that? It's just an inspection. Won't that help places stay accountable and protect people? No, that's not what this is. This is not mom checking on you to make sure that you made it into your jammies and you're still breathing. This is a landlord showing up in your window with no notice, which is illegal, by the way, to tell you, fuck your service animal, he said no pets, and you are now being evicted. This is a medical facility where the workers are trained professionals providing an important and often life-saving service to medical patients, but any old time they want, the gov can just send some narcs, body narcs, to snoop around. Patient confidentiality? I don't know. Is that a thing? Privacy? Never heard of it. Can the same people pop in to hand out free contraceptives or share culturally appropriate resources on sexual health? That is what I am challenging them to do. Do something about the many, many rapists in this world, or address why Black people giving birth are at the highest risk for complications with illness and injury due to medical racism and negligence. That is what I want to know.
This bill is primarily pushed also by people who have historically voted against abortion rights, I think, too. So it's very clearly not in altruistic. We need to inspect these facilities. It's very much like, let's intimidate people who are there.
Absolutely. That's the unannounced part. Showing up unannounced is upsetting to anyone.
Yeah, and it's also it treats it like a pizza shop or something. They're going to catch them doing some sort of bad deal in the back, and
smoking weed in the walk-in.
Yeah. And this is high-level medical facility stuff. I'm sure they had to get certified or something to establish themselves. I can't imagine this does anything except for it basically allows more opportunities to shut it down. It's like when they don't whatever that Joe Kennedy guy didn't want to make weed illegal because he's but that's how that's how the cops get into the car. That's how you can arrest somebody for a gun and say, I smell weed. Mm-hmm. And this does the same thing, where they could walk in with some arbitrary decision and shut it down. And it seems like the supporters of this are just looking for more opportunities to close them. And yeah, I don't know. They're usually pretty good at what they do. So I'm always impressed how accomplished they are when it comes to making it more difficult to get an abortion.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm. Andy, what were you going to say?
Well, like you talked about before, this is a medical.
Yeah.
And but Rhode Island just passed something saying it should go to the Judiciary Committee.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why I was kind of trying to reference that. It's making it a criminal issue is another way that they can constantly kind of be keeping an eye on it. The last one, Senate Bill 664. This one is somehow even grosser. This one says that while you are going through an abortion procedure, if that thing is fully cooked and ready to rock and is actually delivered alive, which I think is rare but does happen sometimes, that thing automatically becomes a ward of the state and can sue you for attempted murder because it has rights.
Damn.
I don't know what people think is going on in here. How do you think abortion works?
Yeah, it's people that have never actually investigated what happens. The time periods that you're allowed to get an abortion, in Ohio at least, nothing's going to survive that. They won't let you can't. Late stage abortion is there's one or two doctors, I think, in the country that are doing that. It's a handful.
Yeah,
you know?
it's not common.
I just think of The Omen, like giving birth to this demon child that is going to sue you because, I mean, how can they prove that too? How would the kid, like, let's say the kid is like 18 at this point and he's like, I know that my parent tried to abort me, so I'm going to sue.
They don't think that's ever going to happen. What they're doing is they're making up a situation just so they can use the words attempted murder on the same bill as an abortion bill. That way you can kind of put them together, you see them together, and then it becomes part of the conversation.
Scares them.
Well, I mean, anyone can have an abortion, obviously, but I think that it is often tied to poverty, sort of just intrinsically, and I think it's another way of criminalizing being poor.
That's a good, yeah.
Yeah, and it also just comes to I just imagine the freaks that made this bill just are thinking that they're the ward of this child and they're going to use the full power of the government on this mother, you know, that wanted to have a medical procedure.
Yeah, or whoever is giving birth in this situation, like, they they officially don't matter anymore. Like, they're a vessel of divine something or other, and thus their rights go away while fetus, who never asked for any of this, by the way, has taken over as the Holy Spirit or what have you.
The Omen.
The Omen. Do you remember a couple of years ago, though, there was a grown man who sued his parents for having him because he didn't ask to be born. It was a joke, which is like, that feels like a lot of money for a joke, but, you know, do whatever you want, I guess.
I think he lived with his parents when he sued them as well. Oh wait, no, that was a different story. That was a guy whose parents threw away his expensive vintage porn collection, and it was worth like $100,000, and he sued them for the losses because his mom threw out his fucking porno. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Yeah,
that's $100,000 worth of porn.
That's what he was saying.
Holy shit, man! But this,
you better not make those pages sticky because you got to make sure they're, you know.
Yeah, he must have had like vintage Playboys or something. Like, couldn't just be VHSs. I don't know.
We'll never know. They're gone.
I used to have some VHS porns.
We will never know. Yeah, those abortion-related bills are atrocious, and I really do hope that they don't pass. Andy, there's some other bills you wanted to bring up?
Yeah. One of them is like a voter suppression bill. It's number S0666. Devil horns, everybody. And it's not a good bill, though. It's a voter suppression bill that is requiring people to have photo ID when they vote by mail.
Man.
So if your ID is not valid, if it's coronavirus time and you haven't been able to go to the DMV because you're not vaccinated or whatever, if you have some kind of shit going on in your life and your ID is not valid, then automatically your vote would not count.
How does that work exactly? I'm not sure, because if you're voting by mail, how do you show somebody your ID?
You probably give them the number that's on your ID, and they probably will check to see if it's valid with the DMV database. This is also like another form of like suppressing the people that's happening in Providence. Like we were just talking about, like the testimony that's happening online. Well, I don't have the bill in front of me, but there was another bill that was put out that required you to sign in, or not sign in, swear in like you're in court before you give testimony. Now, I haven't read through the bill completely, but I think that means that you have to be there. Not only like you can't do it online if you have something else going on, you know, if you have some kind of issue where you can't make it there, you have to be there and you have to swear in. So there's like a criminal aspect if they can try to catch you in a lie, or if they think you're lying, or they can, you know, spin this any way that they want. It's just another way of making it difficult to talk to your representative and to intimidate people from coming forward and talking about your points of view.
And also, like, a lot of these Senate meetings happen during the day when working class people are at work. So to, like, require them to be there and say, I don't know, the fucking Pledge of Allegiance is just bizarre.
It's
like,
just, yeah.
Take the time off work instead of sending in testimony.
And people have issues with IDs. Like, IDs are hard to come by for a lot of people for various reasons. Like, that is a lot of money to come up with. Like, trans people have whole issues with IDs and, like, your name, whatever your name is legally, or, like, maybe it's an old picture or you've got a gender marker on there, whatever. Like, some people just don't have IDs.
Yeah, my ID expired on my birthday, and I have like the most easiest life ever, and I still don't think it's going to be fixed by next year. Not until the cop pulls me over and they say this is expired and you have to get it fixed. I have like complete avoidance issues when it comes to bureaucracy and stuff like that. I just cannot bring myself to do it. I've always been bad at it. And so, yeah, my vote would have not been in earlier times in my life. My vote definitely probably wouldn't have counted with something like this in place. If they could have checked the status of my license, I've gone years before without getting it done. So, and it is also, just they're not in easy places to get to. It takes all damn day. If you have a job that requires you to be there and you don't get days off, like it's a whole fucking day trip to take the bus to the DMV.
Mm-hmm. And now you have to make an appointment and wait outside, and it's a whole thing.
Yeah, it's not fun to try to get any kind of ID during the pandemic.
It's just such a pain in the ass. And like, for what?
I mean, I wish I could just send them the money and just, I'm still this, it's all the same. Everything's the same. Just, it's nothing changed, I guess, I don't know what new information I could give them. They just want to check in on me, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's another part of it too, right? It's a way of policing indirectly, making sure that everybody has an up-to-date ID, that they've paid their fee for the ID and all that garbage. Yeah. And like, it's definitely a class issue too, because I think what we've all been saying, what underlies this whole thing, is that working class people have a much harder time making sure that they're all up to date with their IDs and that they can get the transportation that they need to go give testimony and all that. So yeah, it's fucked up, Bill.
The other bill I got is a controversial bill because it's about a serious subject, and it's not
like one of those goofy subjects. Like,
I'm sorry, yeah, these are all very important. That's why we're talking about them. This one kind of like walks a line with anti-Semitism, and its numbers it's S0690, and it's changing the definition of anti-Semitism in the state of Rhode Island to reflect the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition. And what this would change is it would now encompass criticisms of Israel as being anti-Semitic. And the way that it's written inside of the definition that they give is that it's okay to criticize Israel as long as it's the same kind of criticism that you would level against any other country. Which kind of is saying, like, I can say that Netanyahu, like, I don't like Netanyahu, but you wouldn't be able to say, like, I think that the state of Israel was built unfairly or was built on, a place where people already lived. Saying, if you, like, were pro-Palestine, if you wanted to say Israel shouldn't exist, you would then be labeled anti-Semitic. So,
wait, are there like fairies spying on you? How do they verify these things?
Well, I'm sure it's kind of like what Alex talked about how they're taking money away from one thing and putting it into something else. There's a lot of gray area into how they frame things. So, it's adding a different angle on anti-Semitism, and people that are pro-Palestine on Twitter that are local here are worried that they won't be able to criticize the state of Israel without, being labeled as anti-Semitic. And someone brought up a good point that a lot of people who are Jewish don't agree with the state of Israel as well. So it's one of those things that, like, that's happening. There's like a few people that are concerned about it. I don't know how Rhode Island's gonna vote on this at all. I have no idea which way this is gonna go. But
the weirdest part is that isn't the bill pushed by, first of all, no Jewish representatives
bill,
are pushing it. Second of all, the people who are pushing it hard voted against a what was it
White supremacy
an
and
anti-Nazi
Nazi.
referendum.
Yeah.
Like, they voted against it, but now they're like all of a sudden gung-ho champions about making sure Rhode Island's definition of anti-Semitism is, I don't know, broad enough to be misused and misinterpreted. I don't know.
Yeah, they get pretty far with this stuff. I was surprised with like the whole Jeremy Corbyn situation that he got taken out so easily.
Did you just call him Jeremy Corn Beef?
Yeah.
Don't think I didn't catch that. I like
Jeremy
it.
Corbyn. And this is one of those things where like right-wing evangelicals love Israel. They can use it to shut anybody else down. And then you have also just, well-meaning liberal types that are like, oh, anti-Semitism is bad. And then it becomes something to just shut down all conversations about Palestine is really what it accomplishes.
Yeah, it's a good point that like liberals who don't think twice about it or don't understand like the implications or don't even necessarily read into the bill will just be on board with it because it's against anti-Semitism. You know what I mean?
It uses those words, and those words instantly intimidate people from the subject. Like, I lost my train of thought. Never mind.
It's
Sorry.
kind of like
Okay.
it's kind of like I don't know. All of these bills they seem to me to be more symbolic than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Or that's the way that like these people on the right want to frame them so that they get passed, so that everybody kind of just falls in line and agrees with them because they're good-natured symbolic bills. But there's like a really sinister aspect to having non-Jewish representatives define what anti-Semitism is.
It's just like those politicians that are making rules for girls competing in sports without taking in the opinion of the girls competing in sports. Like I think the youth in Pride in Providence made a statement.
Youth Pride, they're awesome.
Yeah, about people who are trans that are participating in sports, and they were like, "This bill's fucked up. We don't agree with it. We are the people that this would affect. You're not speaking for us, and we don't appreciate it." And it's just a bunch of old white dudes thinking they know what's best for absolutely everybody. But
Have you guys noticed how, like, have you really taken a step back and looked at how seriously social media has converged with, like, social politics?
In what way? What do you mean?
You and I were talking yesterday, I think, about the Instagram account who was a Taylor Swift, like, fan updates account.
Mm-hmm.
It was like an Israeli teen who was jailed for a long period of time for refusing to join the IDF. And that became like I don't know, at some point, like, Taylor Swift became synonymous with, like, pro-Palestine icon somehow. And then, like, you'll see all these memes, I guess. It's like, we're turning Israel into Wasreal. Or just, like, the, like, really strange lens that's being put on these really sort of intense political topics. But it's, like, a person named, like, Buttplug 420 who's, like, bringing you the meme. And it's like, well, get with Buttplug.
Yeah, they do. TikTok has a lot of people that will just make inane videos that then just say like "Free Palestine" at the end, and it'll just be some Doge meme type stuff. And then what's his name? That rapper. He made that song where he says "Free Palestine" at the beginning. "Jesus is the One" by Zach Fox. He just says "Free Palestine" and then he starts rapping. But I think that the social media has become a shorthand for has become a way for people to show off, and I think that those kinds of issues with the competition to be most woke, I think that the Palestine issue is something that is like an immediate thing that has to be discussed. And I think that for kids and younger folks, it just seems like, why the fuck is this happening? You're not really beat down where you're like, well, there's these reforms that have to happen. There's going to be talks, that's for them. It's just a black and white issue, I think, you know,
Yeah.
sometimes.
I mean, yeah. That I don't really know what to make of the social politics aspect of social media, other than to say that like it is the place where everybody has an opinion, and it's potentially very useful. There's been a lot written about how social media can like link these desperate movements. There's a book right there, Twitter and Tear Gas, which is about how the use of Twitter actually like facilitated some of the actions in Arab Spring, because people were able to reach out to, and Brett, you might be able to speak more to this because you were part of the Occupy Wall Street movement, but how we're talking about how social media can have like a super valuable aspect where it can get people to mobilize together all in unity, but it can also have that like sinister aspect where one person's opinion is taken as gold, and it's just run with.
Yeah, I don't know. I think overall it's helped. I mean, there's more conversations being had about things that weren't allowed before.
Yeah.
There is, I don't think that young people are going to save us. I don't think they're all good. I mean, a lot of them are obviously like fucking fascist bastards. But I think that the window of acceptability is moving way harder in our direction, because me and Brian talk about this a lot. When I was a kid, I heard about liberals, and I heard there were like these bleeding heart people that did what was right and were always caring about people too much. Like my family bitched about Democrats all day long because they were sympathetic to every cause, and I was like, inside was like, oh, that's what I am. That's actually what I am. And then I graduated and found they're these hardline, to me they're nicer racists, they're fair. They're fair in the way that means that LGBTQ people don't get the same. They were civil union people forever. So I think that now I mean, I don't know where it goes, but I know that a lot more young people have seen and heard more radical ideas at a young age, and it's very hard to shake them off once you hear them. You just like, even to try to go back to liberalism just feels like you're selling out. Not saying that everybody, a lot of people do that, but there's a lot of people are just like, I was too radical, but you still have that guilt inside of you that like the world shouldn't be like this. The world needs to be different, and we need to act now. We need to do something today instead of waiting around.
Here, here.
Well put. And so we always approach these as like listeners might not know who you are, and so we try to like
idiots.
We try to give you like the opportunity to just kind of explain as much as you can. And so I guess a good starting question for this interview is, can you tell us the history of Street Fight and it's what you guys are all about?
Yeah, basically I met my co-host Brian Quinby probably 12 years ago. I was in a weird place in my life, and so was he, but we both had podcasts, and I decided to go guest on the one they were doing. We were working with some other guys, didn't work out. So Street Fight was born like 10 years ago now, and we reached out to community radio here in Columbus, WCRS, so we got on there. And then, we mostly did news stuff. Like we talked a lot about like Obama's drone bombing. We covered Occupy Wall Street stuff. We did a lot of Wall Street. We did a lot of the stuff that like I guess Chapo and other podcasts are doing much better now, which is breaking down some of these insane people like Josh Barro or any of the writers of the New York Times, Brett Stevens, all those idiots, David Frum. So we were doing that for a while. I moved away to Dallas We kept the show going, and eventually, Chapo Trap House. We had them on the show to do a special edition. They hit and sent a lot of people our way, and so we've now made this our full-time job for the last 4 years now, and we take calls on Sunday nights from people at work to talk about what's going on in their life. We talk labor issues. Yeah, a lot of what we do was really revolves around, the name Street Fight being street level news, or what folks on the ground are talking about. We were kind of annoyed with NPR being seen as some sort of like liberal, or not even just a centrist, like an unbiased news source, but their money advice is always for people that make $250,000 a year and don't work a minimum wage job. So we kind of we wanted to just do something from the perspective of the people doing all the work, I feel. And we've built a huge community so far, and it's been going well. We do live shows and hope to get back to them soon.
Is it more fun to do live shows than the pre-recorded?
Yeah, the live shows are a lot of fun. The reaction from people, there's just nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we were doing like one show a month, and we would just do a whole new show. But as we started doing tours, we actually were write material. So by the time, I used to, like, we did stand-up comedy before, and that wasn't as fun to say the jokes over and over again each week to the same uninterested people. But to do a tour, by the time we've done a set like 7 times, it's really like tight and together, and I really enjoy it and the reaction we get. And plus we do a lot of improv stuff, and we have listeners come up from the audience, so you have no idea what the show is going to be. I don't even when we start, so it's just chaos.
I like the format of it. It feels fun. Feels more fun.
Yeah. We have crowd surfed, we take our shoes off, we do all kinds of good stuff.
Related to the comedy aspect, I think Andy and I have had this conversation a lot about how in leftist podcasting it can be very difficult to balance serious topics like the topics we talked about today with comedy, and for us as relatively new podcasters, it is a difficult balance to maintain, but I think you guys do it well. And I mean, I guess just curiously, how do you guys manage all that?
Well, we did try to be more impactful and more forceful, and we wanted to like say, hey, this is wrong, this is fucked up, stuff like that. But then we quickly realized that just our whole worldview is based in an ideology that cares about other people, and that thinks imperialism and colonialism and all those other things are fucked up. So it was really like, we're naturally that way. So we kind of focused on being more entertainers, I guess, or doing more jokes, because the politics stuff always gets slipped in. Like, there's no way that we could just go and do stand-up comedy or do a show that was all jokes. We would break to say something, relative to working class struggles or something like that. So I think it was more just trusting that, we were doing the work to make sure that we weren't going to hurt anybody's feelings or exclude or oppress anybody, and then just running with the jokes, as best as we could. It is very hard though. There are some stuff that we don't necessarily do because it is, or it's just some stuff is too fucked up that it's like, I don't want to talk about this.
Yep.
I was listening recently to the last episode of Street Fight, and you guys got into a conversation about how it was with a brewer that called in. And the conversation was about how sometimes a hobby or something that you love as a passion can get kind of, I don't want to say stale, but it becomes laborious. And I mean, I think that this question is going towards the fact that Street Fight, that both you and Brian, you do guest spots frequently on top of your regular show, and you do a lot of like bonus series and stuff like that. And so it is something that seems to me, from listening particularly to Brian, even though I love him, that it can be a lot. And so I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, is it still a labor of love for you guys, or has it become more than that or less than that? I don't know.
I would say that talking on the mic is the thing that I like to do the most. So guest spots and bonus series and doing the show, I still like to do that. Even if I have a bad day, like if the mic cuts on, I just feel like I got to perform. And so, and I have an endless amount. That to me is just something that comes naturally. I think that the part that really bums me out is like spreadsheets and doing payroll and trying to market it, thinking about marketing, like how to get more people to listen. Do I even want to do that? Is it, what should we do? That's the kind of stuff that it is like not as fun, when we started by just sitting in a room and having a fun conversation. And, we let that build. We wanted a website, and I was like, I talked to a professional website developer. They want $700 for a website. If the listeners are willing to pay for it, we'll get it. And we got it in a week or two. So that was enough to tell us people were interested and liked what we did and wanted to give us money for it. Now that it's blown up to this point and I have like a whole life that's built on it, on the wages that come in, it does feel more like a grind in a way where it's like, I have to do it. I don't have the freedom to take time off the way I did when I had another job or was a stay-at-home dad and we were just recording. But yeah, it's in relation to like the thing about it though, I think, is that I created my own mess. Like this is my own doing and I'm ultimately in charge. I think the difference with that is for like brewing and some of the other artistic endeavors and even nonprofits as well, is they will take your passion or your innate ability to do something and really grind as much as they can out of you and just say, hey, you love making beer, or aren't you passionate about climate change? That's why we work 60-hour weeks, so I think it's a kind of a different relationship. Like I feel like I'm creating my own misery in a way.
I just want to give a shout out to Brian real quick. He said that last episode that he pronounces words wrong all the fucking time, like genre gonre or something like that. Dude, fucking big same. I get it. That was like a spiritual connection. I'm there with you, Brian. Also, I want to compliment the call-in format that you have, because the people that you have is like, not only is it diverse, but it's interesting and it's all relevant. Is there any weird moments for you that you've like, what's the weirdest call-in moment that you think that you've had on the show?
Don't say me.
Yeah, I could, but I won't. I don't know. That's really hard to say off the top of my head. We have had some weird Twitch moments where people sent a whole bunch of like followers over. They did like a brigade thing or something, or a raid or something. And that was really annoying, even though it was like 10,000 new people, like several thousand people watching the show. It annoyed me. As far as callers go, we have listeners that complain and say that we're too nice and that we let everybody talk too much. But I think that is also part of what we do. I think that's just part of who I am. I've always been a person that hears people out or will listen to someone all the way through, whether they're outside or I'm just meeting them, or it's a stranger or somebody I know. So I don't really know who our weirdest caller would be, to be honest. I feel like I'd be calling them out.
I remember it was probably like a year and a half ago. There was someone that called into you guys and asked you what your basis of morality was. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And then it was just some weird like skeleton caller who was just like, I just want to ask you guys, what's your basis of morality? And it was like, what?
That was a good one. That was somebody that saw the show on the stream and just called in and yeah, we're trying to understand what our basis of morality. I think I ended up hanging up on that guy.
Yeah. Rightfully so, I think. That conversation could not have gone anywhere productive, I guess. Go ahead.
Did you ever? This is an important question. Did you ever get a Cinnamar?
I haven't got one yet. We're working on it. We have to figure out how to manufacture them first, or I'm gonna have to make like a prototype.
Mm-hmm. I
Cinnamar.
think so. Yeah.
Related to the fact that you and Brian both now are at a point where you do this full time, and it's your primary source of income. Are you guys worried at all that it could all collapse at some point?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's with everything. We worry that maybe Patreon, if some fucking weird right winger, says these guys are communists or something, that they could just take it all away. But I think we could figure something else out, and I think that I'm confident that the amount of support we have right now and the amount of regular listeners, that we would come out all right on the other side.
Yeah, and I think that your listeners are sort of like the street fight community. There's a lot of really tight supporters, so I think that's good.
Can I also say something, just since we're getting into this, and because people think podcasting is like an easy thing to do? There's also tens of thousands of people that listen to the show, and one of the toughest parts of the job is I have people that have like mental health crises, like on a regular basis, that like will show up in my DMs, and there's people all the time that will send me just pages of DMs, and I'll try to talk to them about it and stuff, and then 2 or 3 weeks later they'll just be like, I was just diagnosed with like dissociative identity disorder. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm glad I was here to listen to you. We've had people threaten to commit suicide on more than one occasion and blame it all on me and Brian. And it's very heavy, the way that people create a relationship with you on a podcast and kind of think they know who you are. And we're also very open and talkative to people and makes ourselves available. But there is a lot of stuff that I never thought I would have to do in my life, just because I put myself out there like this. I get wrapped up in a lot of other people's issues and things. And I'm not complaining. It's just something that I feel like people don't understand, how fanatical it can happen, even at a very small level, people can get.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's heavy. Yeah.
That's a lot.
I bet you didn't imagine that when you first started doing this, huh?
No. I mean, it wasn't, it was really like, I like to help people. I like to listen to people's problems. I've always been like a therapy friend for a lot of people, but that's kind of just got blown up over the last few years. And normally I think it is good. I've been able to redirect resources. That's the nice thing, is that we do have people now that like, I can say, what part of the state are you in? I have a bunch of Facebook people that will research all of the information you need to get free healthcare right now, or whatever it is, or to find a crisis center or whatever is necessary. We've saved people's houses. We've prevented people from living on the streets. We've bought people groceries. It really isn't all based on me, but the community of people that do like us and are a part of the street fight group are really helpful and supportive and just wonderful people. And so it's been a great place for like all the outcasts to come and kind of have a family.
That's good. Yep.
I was just gonna say, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we aspire to be that big, because sort of the goal of this podcast was always to like be locally focused. So I think that there's a lot of like national level leftist podcasts that are talking about Joe Biden and bigger national issues, and there aren't enough of the local guys that are talking about, like we did today, Senate bills for the state of Rhode Island, or like issues in Providence itself. But the way that I understand it is that we have to have some kind of relationship and dialogue with these national level podcasts. It's the way that like we can help ourselves in that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense, and I agree. I think that Brian and I are just like sickos that wanted to be celebrities ever since we were 10 years old. But I think for people doing actually organizing things, these are great resources to have, to know what's going on in your area, because it is, it creates distance when you're like, oh, Joe Biden's doing this. It's like, well, can't do nothing about Joe Biden, but if it's your state, and if it's affects you directly, or if it's your city and they're talking about it on a podcast, you're a relevant source of information. And this is exactly what we should be doing with this technology. Everybody doesn't have to make it a living, but sitting down to have a conversation, is helpful for everybody.
Agreed.
You were saying about building a community of people that all get along and support each other. Like, we just had someone on from Left Flank Vets, Marcus. Shout out Left Flank Vets. You guys are doing great stuff. It's a leftist group for veterans. He said at one point that a lot of people that are leftist or have left-leaning politics kind of come across an ideological desert, because not a lot of people will agree with them or see eye to eye with them politically in like their neighborhood and that kind of thing, because leftists, we're not that common. We're big on the internet because we're active, but in the communities in which we live, it's hard to really connect with people. So I think building like that kind of familial network, like over like Street Fight and other groups, is like super important, so for people to feel like they're not alone and they're not like singled out, or they're not weird, or because it's easy to internalize a lot of like the Democratic narrative and the Republican narrative. It's hard for a person to think for themselves and say this is wrong, and then to call yourself a communist on top of that is a tough thing for a lot of people to do if they're not surrounded by their peers.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is like, that's what I was saying earlier. Like when I was younger, it was like I knew there was leftism. I knew there was social. I knew other countries had socialism. There was this thing inside of me when I'm at work, I'm at the store, I'm at my family. Everyone I'm around thinks that's a silly, stupid way to think. And it's easy for you to be like, why do I have to be so negative? Why don't I just go along? Why can't I just, pick a candidate and go and run with that, but then once you do find people that are like, no, this stuff is fucked up and it can be done differently, it does help to boost your spirits, but without going out into the world and finding people in your community to accomplish things with, to protest with, to work on stopping the world that we all want to stop, without the in real life interaction, there isn't much that's going to happen. We can't really think that it's all going to change just because we care enough about it inside of our heart. Like it doesn't no effects of being changed whether you care or not. It's whether you do something about it. But Street Fight was also designed in our mind to be something that is a place where we tell jokes. We wanted it to be a place for folks that do activism or are in these circles. You can come here and blows off some steam. We're not going to teach you anything, but our baseline for what's funny doesn't include any of the awful shit that's been considered comedy or shock jock shit for years. So it was really a matter of kind of believing that culture kind of builds confidence in people to stand up and say this is who they are. And I think that the TikTok memes and the Instagram and Facebook and all of that also helps to build that up. But it is more than anything about your local systems in place and what you're doing to disrupt them or help the people that are.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wish we were shock jocks.
Yeah.
Go. I know. It seems so easy. We listen to them and it's just so easy. They don't have to try at all. It sucks.
Yeah, you
I
guys.
just want like a button that goes like, "Oh man," or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Brian won't let me get a soundboard. I want a
Oh, man.
soundboard so bad.
I just want that sound, like that party horn.
You can download that for your phone.
Oh,
There's an air horn app.
don't need the soundboard. Just need my phone. Just do that every time someone says something dumb.
Down to
saying,
0
you can hack it.
listeners.
I guess as like a last question, I wanted to ask you about because you guys have been in the podcasting game for over 10 years, right? So Street Fight has been a thing for 10 years, but you guys were podcasting before that. And I think that within those 10 years, podcasting on the left has like ballooned to such a massive level. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that in general.
I love it. I mean, I think it's good that there's a scene. I feel like me and Brian were doing it during Obama, and we were getting screamed at by Democrats constantly, calling us racists, calling us anti-Semites for talking about drone bombings and shit too, and about Palestine. And I think that was kind of our way of being shock jock or edgy, was just to say, fuck the American flag, and at the same time, it was there wasn't a lot of other shows that sounded like that or were doing that. And from what I know with band culture is you can't just be a good band and all of a sudden you're successful. It's usually scenes. When it comes to the underground DIY stuff, there has to be a group of people supporting each other and making sure they have places to play and things like that. So with Donald Trump, obviously a lot of people got very radical very quickly, and that was helpful. Not saying that I'm happy that Donald Trump was a president, but it was helpful to what we did, and I think moved things in that direction. As far as it goes today, I think I just posted this too because we're doing the Get Motivated series, but the best time to start a podcast was 15 years ago, and the second best time is today. I'm not one of those people that believes it's oversaturated or it's something that there's enough of them already. I think that the voices that are on them are relevant to the people that they are. I don't think every show is going to have 10,000 listeners, but I think it is a fun hobby, the same way that people get together and make music in their garage and they never go on stage. And I think that's all valid forms of creation. I don't consider it lesser than. I think it's artistic. I think it's, and I think, and you can just, the voices that I listen to that wouldn't traditionally be on the radio, people with lists, people with accents, like that stuff was all shut out of commercial media. And I listened to so many outrageous and wonderful personalities that I don't think are fit for TV or anything else. So I think that it helps to build a culture. It helps to keep people in a community. And I think it's only just begun. I mean, there's more kids growing up that are going to find more leftist podcasts. Every year after year, we have people all the time. We've been doing it 10 years and people are like, I just started listening to you 3 weeks ago. It's fucking amazing. And we thought everybody in the world had heard us, and that's who we had. So yeah, I think it's not a ticket to like a middle-class lifestyle or anything like that. But I think that if you have something good to say, people will show up. It's just going to take a lot longer than you expect.
Cool. Thank you for coming on. Oh, you got something, Andy?
Yeah. You mentioned Get Motivated, this new thing that you're doing. Do you have anything that you want to plug that you have coming up, or anything that you're passionate about that's happening right now?
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't heard Street Fight Radio before, just listen to the podcast. We do it twice a week. You can also watch us on live stream on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. We're Street Fight WCRS on there, Street Fight Radio on Twitch. And then we're also doing a D&D stream next Thursday. I don't know when this comes out. But we'll be doing those for free on Twitch for the next few months. We started up a campaign. The Get Motivated stuff is paid, so if you're not already listening to us, just give the podcast a try, and we've got a whole bunch of other bonus content on patreon.com.
Who's DMing the D&D program you guys got going on?
Their name is Katie Maskew. Ms. Moxie Cotton on Twitter is the name.
How many people you got playing?
There's 4 of us. It's me, Brian, our audio engineer, and leftist rapper Icy Jake, and then his girlfriend Tasha.
Is Brian's character like he wanted, like the action movie hero guy?
Yeah, Brian's character is leather jacket, rope bad to the bone, kills everything that moves. That's Brian's character.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for doing this with us, and yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's great to meet you.
As always, if you like what you hear, check out our Patreon and also follow the PLR podcast on Twitter and Instagram. Instagram is where we have most updates all the time. I'm still struggling with Twitter. I'm still trying to tweet, trying to learn Twitter.
We might take Twitter away from Alex.
Yeah, it's hard. The musical guest for today is Loretta Corsetto from Providence. This entire song was written, produced, and mixed by them, and the song title is Eternal Sun and the Last Letter. Thanks for listening.